Hello and welcome to the third episode of the Author Time podcast. I'm your host, Oso, and I'm joined here by Ellipse and Agraboo, co-hosting alongside me from the TMA community. And we are joined by Scarzor. A lot of you may know him, some of you may not. And we're going to be talking to him a lot today about various things and all things mapping. So just for any new viewers who are first joining us, this is a podcast brought to you by TMA, where, like I mentioned before, we talk about anything and everything mapping. We are here every 2 weeks on Sunday in the evening or in the afternoon, depending on where you live. And we have a new special guest every episode from within the mapping community. So we're first going to start off by talking to our guest. And then we're going to talk about mapping related news, as well as new map releases that have come out in the last couple weeks, as well as item sets, or just items in general that have been coming out in the last couple weeks. And at the end, we're going to have a live Q&A where anybody can ask questions to either our special guest Scarzor or any of us, or just the group of us in general. So if you have any questions, you can drop them at any time in the chat. One of us will see it and we will take note of it, and we will be ready to answer it in the Q&A, or when the Q&A rolls around, you can go ahead and drop it then. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, Scarzor, a guy who needs probably no introduction to many people, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's the third most awarded mapper on TMX, our 2022 Mapper of the Year nominee. He's both the winner of both the custom scenery and the ice map of the year, and won the title of Ice Mapper of the Year in 2021 and 2022. You've probably seen his work in Track of the Day, in competitions from professional to otherwise, events and more. The man, the myth, the legend, Scarzor TM. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I think there's a lot that can be said about your career, and I know we're going to get into a little bit of it here, but we like to start things off by just looking at a couple maps that you put out over the years, and giving anybody who hasn't had a chance to look at a Scarzor map just a little insight into the type of the stuff that you do. So we're first, as always, we start with a little bit of an earlier map, maybe not your earliest map, but just maybe a little longer ago. So this is Niseko by you and Nightwolf. What can you tell us about this map?
Yeah, you're right. This is one of the earlier maps that I created. I was definitely still trying to find my style. So here I was actually, trying to innovate what I was trying to do. Just trying some new things. This is a very, very long slide.
It's a very good, very long slide.
I kind of enjoyed building this because it definitely developed the skills that I have today. Of course, was also always fun to work with Nightwolf because, as you can see, this is like early day Nightwolf scenery, so it looks nice.
Yeah, I like what you said about you finding your own style with this, and I think, like you said yourself, this was kind of earlier, I guess you could say, in Nightwolf's career as well, so seeing kind of you both experimenting and creating something with a certain atmosphere and a certain concept is really cool. Like you said, there is a pretty long, big spiral slide in this map. I think we also see a lot of the very signature, I guess you could say, Scarzor-esque transitional elements with those bank-to-bank transitions, with some of the drops, with some of the spinning out of a slide into a drop type of things. How would you say you kind of found your way with those things and found that style? Is that something that you were kind of just discovered one day and decided you liked those things, or did they kind of develop naturally over time?
I think they developed naturally. I always think that maps with a couple of transitions and jumps, they're pretty cool. Obviously, I wanted to stand out in ice. So I tried to implement what I found cool from other maps into ice, and I think that's how I experimented into making this transitional style.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that people don't really. Coming into TrackMania 2020, there was a lot of understanding of how to drive TrackMania maps. And when we were given ice, which was by all intents and purposes a brand new way of driving the TrackMania car, it kind of took a while for people to figure out what that meant and what that looked like and how to really map in a way that still appealed to regular TrackMania players. So it's really interesting you say how you're integrating known kind of or more traditional concepts of transitional mapping into ice and adapting them in different ways. And we definitely see a lot of that in this map and in other maps, one of which was Gengar. This is an entirely different map than the last one in terms of length, style, approach. What can you tell us about this map?
Yeah, this one is a map that I'm proud of. This is yeah. I always get excited when I talk about Gengar, to be honest, because this took me months to build, and I wasn't as experienced as I am today. I just wanted to create something. If you know the map Ghost, which is like an engine off full speed map, I wanted to create something in terms of difficulty like that on ice. So that's how I came up with Gengar. I didn't want to call it somewhat like Ghost, but I figured Pokemon is probably one of my favorite games of all time. So why not give it the name of my favorite Pokemon? So
nice.
Gengar.
And Gengar is like a shadow type or ghost type. I forget the specification, right? As well. So it kind of works out.
Yeah, it definitely does work out. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So you said you kind of wanted to make a map like that style kind of thing. Was there any other influence or intention behind this map when you made it, or was it just to kind of make something hard and long, or did you have some more bigger vision for it that kind of developed over time?
It's a funny story because this actually it was never supposed to become a map that was released. So this was my experimental map where I tried to find different transitions or try to do something out of the box with ice, finding some combinations for maybe other maps. But it turned into something that was really challenging and really well received by the community.
Let's talk about that reception. This map exploded in popularity, became one of the most awarded maps on TMX. Did you expect that level of reception?
No, because it's ice. Ice is still not really the most popular style. Yeah, that's not a secret. So I definitely did not expect that. But even non-ice players were having fun on this map, and I know that some ice players that are really good at the game now, they started off playing this map.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think, yeah, the fact that people started off playing this map, but the fact that people got so involved with this map in general, I think speaks to how captivating it was, just in terms of the overall challenge, but also just how creative and interesting it was in every different part. It's clear that I think it makes a lot of sense that when you say this was an experimental thing for you, because as you go through the map, everything is very different. There's no part that feels similar to the last, and I think that speaks to the experimental nature of it, and I think that's a lot of why it appealed to so many people. And I think after seeing the success of this, I would not be surprised if we see more maps like this, not just from yourself, but from other people who are kind of inspired by this type of endurance, flowy, trial, RPG type, platformy style map. I think it's really cool to see. And speaking of incredibly popular maps, we got to talk about Igrilear. I'm probably butchering that. What can you tell us about how this map came to be?
Yeah, this happened a long time ago where, yeah, obviously HTMH, he reached out because he wanted to do something with ice again. Mm-hmm. He made maps like Whiteout before. He wanted to do something different, something with cell shading, something that looked a little bit like the Borderlands style. So he reached out because he wanted an easy to play route, but kind of creative in a way, with a lot of transitions, small, like you saw there, in a cave-like environment. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just built a route that I thought was different, which is something that I try to do with all my maps. I always try to do something slightly different, and I think it turned out really well. I think this was well received by the overall community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting that you say you try to do something different with every map, and I think that's definitely an important thing to think about in general when you are trying to both develop your map style and kind of make a name for yourself in the mapping community, because at the end of the day, even if you're making something that's pretty quality, it's not going to be as interesting to people long term if you're making a lot of the same. So I think it speaks to your longevity as a creator and your influence over time that you are trying as hard as you can to push yourself and try new things with every map. And I think this map turned out incredibly well. It has a very distinct look. I think the scenery, of course, cannot be understated enough. Tim really knocked it out of the park with this. A really classic transitional, tight, and open combination vibe with the route, with a 360 for good measure. We like to see those. And yeah, just an overall incredible map. And so this was the map that got you a lot of recognition in 2022 in the UCA Awards, as well as a coveted new award, Tona's Track of the Day, Favorite Track of the Day award, which the first one. Maybe we'll get one in 2023. But so you are the proud recipient of the first official Tona Favorite Track of the Day award. So congratulations on that as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's really cool. But of course, this I have to give a lot of credit to HTMH for this one, because what he did, that was amazing. Like he's just a magician with scenery. I don't know how he did this. Well, I kind of know, but yeah, I don't know. It's super difficult to create something like this. I know that for some the performance was not the best, so we apologize for that. But maybe next time.
Yeah.
We will try to look at something that works for more people.
Absolutely.
If there's next time, of course.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, like I said, the scenery cannot be understated. Of course, there's some performance issues, but that's kind of what happens when I think sometimes when you're trying to really push the limit. And Tim is definitely another one of those people that is always trying to kind of push the boundaries of what can be done within TrackMania. And it's very evident to see in this map. And why you got so much recognition, why you both got so much recognition for it, both by Tona himself and UCA Awards. Let's talk a little bit more about UCA. So you are the official Ice Mapper of the Year winner, 2 years running now. Tell us a little bit about what that means to you, what that title, what that award means to you.
To be honest, the first year it meant a lot, because so obviously it was the first time. You always try to do your best, become better than you were before. So I always try to make my next map better than the previous map. So it was nice to win that title. I didn't expect it that year. Last year, obviously with SIT, Scarzor Ice Training, completing the Nightshade trilogy, which is Gengar, Ghastly, and Haunter. I think I did something exceptional, something that stood out to many people. To be honest, last year there could have been different winners. I've seen really good maps, really good mappers. So yeah, I don't know if I will grind myself to potentially winning again next season, or next year, I rather, because I want to do different things, and I've teased them as well. So
yeah,
I think for me it's time to pass on the torch and give it to someone else. But yeah, obviously it means a lot. Also this year, it's recognition for hard work, right? Spent a lot of time in the editor, mainly for others to play, because I don't really play my own maps. I hope that others enjoy my own maps. Most important thing is that you can't satisfy everyone. That's not what I'm aiming for either, but I'm trying to get more people involved in Ice. That's always my goal, and show people that you can do things with Ice that maybe others thought that was not possible.
Yeah, I think it's great to hear that. I think it's always going to be the case for a lot of people where we're mapping for other people to enjoy and hoping that other people can enjoy it. And I think it is safe to say lots of people enjoy your maps. Of course, not everybody can be pleased, especially with a surface as polarizing as ice. You're automatically stepping into some hot water when you put out an ice map just because it's ice. But I think it's, like I said, safe to say a lot of people enjoy your maps. And I know you mentioned that maybe it's time to pass the torch, but there are probably a lot of people that would be rooting for you to go a third year in a row. Get the turkey. That being said, you did mention that you were trying to move on to some other stuff. The start of a new year is a time a lot of people make some resolutions, so to speak, where they set some goals to change. And at the start of this year, you teased that you were now reformed and that plastic is your new friend, so to speak. What can you tell us about your thoughts on plastic and whether or not you are confirmed or not to be a plastic mapper now?
Yeah, I just like plastic. The stuff you can do with it. You can do some cool tricksers with it. You can also drive pretty smoothly on it.
Mm-hmm.
Some funny transitions. So I guess for me, it's just some exploring time again. The same way I did with ice. Obviously, I have a couple of routes already laying around, made on plastic or mainly on plastic.
I think
Example of that was expansion. For example, I try to put out some maps in plastic, just to get some variety going, but also to learn some new stuff.
Yeah, I think it's definitely safe to say that plastic has been kind of underutilized for how long it's been out now. And like you said, there are definitely some more unique things that you can do with it that a lot of people don't maybe either recognize or fully capitalize on. Some of the more interesting mechanics and like that it has a slight little magnetism to it, so you can pull off some smoother transitions in certain ways that you otherwise wouldn't with tarmac or other things, as well as oversliding with keeping more grip. There's lots of interesting ways that you can utilize it, and it's cool to see that you're experimenting with it. I think you're a talented mapper in many ways. You are known for ice mapping, but we've seen lots of other mappers from you of different styles over the years. So really excited to see what more you're bringing to the table with plastic and other maps.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. So speaking of various mapping styles, I wanted to bring something up that some people here may be aware of briefly. So at the end of 2022, you debuted the Ice Mapper tier list, where you put a handful of mappers in various tiers, all seen on screen here, based on your own subjective opinion. And you noted that it was because of creativity, innovation, and calculation. So the first question is, why am I not in S tier? Just kidding. That's not the first question. No, but for real though, this list was actually, for something like this, I think a lot of people see tier lists, especially when they're talking about people, and they kind of get a little off guard. They see it as like, oh, like why are we putting people in categories? But in general, this was really well received, this list, and I think it painted a really wonderful picture of how many different people are doing ice mapping, first of all, but also just how many different styles of ice mapping there really are, that not all ice mappers or maps are doing the same things. Just it's really leaving a big impression on different people in different ways, which is great to see. So my real question is, what like aspects of an ice map or an ice mapper's style put them in like a high tier for you, or really speak to you when you're playing the map? What leaves an impression for you?
Most of all, the fun, playability, accessibility, and making sure that your map becomes doesn't become repetitive. So what makes ice fun to me is if I see different kinds of things, a lot of activity in the map, but also creative things, like not only using ice in your map, but let's say, and this is controversial for ice people, so my apologies, but plastic is a really nice thing to have in an ice map. You can do some really cool things with it. Also dirt. You can just be really creative on ice, and I feel like some people haven't been exploring that too much. But I want to say that this tier list would have looked different if I created it 2 weeks ago.
Interesting.
So some people didn't really like where I put them, and I can say they have been proving me wrong.
Do you have any specific examples that you're comfortable sharing? I mean, you don't have to. I'm just curious.
Yes. So for example, I think Tag, for example, is one of the people that have really showed up for me recently. Just in general, Tag is one of the most creative vanilla scenery builders in the ice community. And I think that what he creates in, let's say, in the structures like rats, he even built like a Pokemon campaign. It's really creative. I can't do that. I'm pretty sure if I tried, I couldn't do it as well as he did. But also, I've seen way better maps coming out from the other guys, like Capman, for example. Also, I think there was Nazgul, Reuval, and Nexamnia, for example. They have all improved in different areas when they mapped ice or mapped in general using that. So these are just a couple of examples, right? There's way more that I would swap around. Maybe I would swap myself around even. I don't know. But yeah, just saying. it would look way different than I would have created it like when I posted it. I think this was a post from 1.5, 2 months ago. Or was it?
This was end of last year.
Nearing 5.
This is 5 months ago. Yeah. My time, my knowledge of time, it gets away with me sometimes. But okay. So this has been in December. Like obviously, people have gotten better. They have created more maps. That's what it's about, right?
Right.
When I say things, I always try to challenge people the way that I was challenged back then, just by doing something different, being more creative, trying to explore a little bit more, rather than doing what everyone else does. Because I think that's where you can create like the most creative maps and be different than others. Create maps that stand out to people.
Yeah, I think creating maps that stands out to people is always going to be, I think, hopefully for a lot of mappers, what is most important that they're thinking about when they're making the map, because there are just so many maps coming out. You have to do something to stand out. The other thing you mentioned when you were talking about things that left impressions on you, or people that, because of that impression they left on you, were higher on this list maybe, was like replayability. I was just wondering if you could expand on that and kind of extend this to Ellipse and Agraboo as well, as more seasoned ice players than myself. Like, what really makes a map...
So you're on the tier list and you're higher than me.
Hey, okay, I mean, that's not for me to explain, okay?
I love Interlaken, to be fair. I love that. That's great.
So, yeah, but I just kind of wanted to extend the question to all of you about what a map being replayable, or what makes a map have a higher level of replayability, in your opinion.
For me, it's the let's say the different types of things you find in a map. If it's one very long slide, it gets boring for me. If there is multiple elements in a map where I get challenged every now and then, or I see different, let's say, physics of the game, it makes it more fun for me. So let's say if you make a 15-second or 30-second long slide to the left, I'm gonna lose interest very fast, because you're at that time you're just brake tapping to continue that slide, which is actually a good example of what I think I did wrong at Niseko. That's why I don't do that anymore. Because for me, Niseko, it got boring very fast because of that.
Right. It also is going to punish a lot of... it's going to be very punishing if you enter the turn slightly wrong, because you're going to be constantly adjusting for a non-ideal line where you're holding a not as great acceleration angle, and kind of is demotivating when you come through the checkpoint after you're a second behind or something, and you're just like, well, this doesn't feel great. Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, that's going to be the case with ice turns in general, or you could apply that to tech and stuff like that as well. But I don't know if Ellipse or Agraboo, if you had anything else to add to that in terms of what is making a map more replayable rather than not.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm kind of the sucker for maps that are kind of hard to finish, So, I mean, the perfect example when it comes to ice maps, like lately, we have the Northwatch one from Sophie and Zafirian. I spent maybe half an hour to like 45 minutes trying to get a clean run, and I fucking loved every minute of it. Like, just having something going on all the time, and you're just like trying to reach the finish, at least for me, creates a high replayability. I mean, especially when you are trying to improve, you see like that you are able to do faster and faster times because you like know every little like part of the map, which is really cool for me. I mean, especially in this start, just 5 to 10 minutes trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You probably played it too, Agra, I think.
Oh yeah, I love this map, 100%. I think the main thing that I could add, because I mean I pretty much fully agree with everything that Scarzor and Ellipse have said here, but if I was going to add something else, for me personally, I also like at least a decent level of consistency of things, where it's like obviously when you're mapping, you want to try new and weird and exciting things, and that's a lot of the fun, is like trying to get creative and do things that maybe haven't been done before, combinations that haven't been done before. But it's just a pet peeve of mine that it's like sometimes things can be inconsistent in ways that aren't really in your control, and that's when it can start to maybe feel like it's weird, because there's a dual thing with it where it's like, one, if you want to go for the quest of perfection, then that's the kind of thing that you can go and aim for, is getting the perfect way to do a certain thing. But at the same time, it can get a little frustrating if you're waiting to get to a certain point of the map that might or might not work for you.
Right.
And it's like, that's the kind of thing that you're trying to balance consistency and creativity and all of these different things together, especially with ice, because ice is so precise in how you have to get your car to places.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense, and that kind of ties into kind of the idea you were mentioning, which is not specific to ice, but when you're pushing a map, really, like when you're really like getting into the map and having fun with it, not just on your first run through or like a good clean run, but when you really start pushing it, how it is benefiting you or rewarding you based on your inputs at every turn. And you really kind of start to get a sense of that when you are kind of pushing it past its normal, like comfortable limits. And that's kind of a learned skill. I think for a lot of people, it takes time to really figure out how to calculate maps and set them up so that they work in those ways. But I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of just the ice mapping and just mapping in general. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Somebody that's very high on this list. There's 70 other mappers on this list, and Scarzor placed only 3 other mappers alongside him in S tier. And one of those mappers is BurlyPog. So this is a guy you've worked with a couple times, but I think a lot of people recognize both him and yourself from an extremely notable map you made in early 2022 called BorpaSpin. So this map was very famous and infamous to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. So what can you tell us about kind of how this map came to be?
So at that time, to be honest, I'm still a little bit like this. I'm not really a big fan. Everyone that knows me will recognize this when I say this. I'm not really the biggest fan of ice spins. Adding them to my map. Usually if I add one, I will add one at a certain part. So like in Aguilar, for example. But I do realize that it's a super cool style, right? So it's a little bit of a trickster on ice. And we wanted to raise attention to that cool style, because Burley is an expert at this, and he deserved way more recognition than he got at that time. So I can't remember who it was, but I think I reached out to Burley asking him if he wanted to do some double route. So him building a spin route, and I will build let's say the accessible parts around it. And I think it turned out really, really well. And yeah, it got the recognition and the respect that I wanted it to get, because everyone started noticing that spins could be fun actually. And so did I. I changed my mind after creating this map of how fun spins actually can be.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear. I'm glad. I think that's the best possible situation, right? Instead of finishing a map and realizing you hate it. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And like we said, I think this map was really well received in general. It gained a lot of notoriety really quickly. I think this was, for a lot of people, especially at the time, it was not as common to have these more distinct, safe, and easy routes, especially in a cup of the day type format. So it was a very unique challenge for a lot of people. And to this day, I guess, maybe it's a little ripperino at this point with the ice changes, but it remained for a long time as one of the most difficult author time challenges, which kind of gave it that livelihood, or that longevity in terms of the challenge as well.
Yeah, we think it should still be possible, like that author time, but it's definitely way harder than it was, and it was already really hard.
Wow.
But we got BorpaSpin 2 laying around already.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that, because you did tease in like mid to late last year some stuff about BorpaSpin 2, and I even recall a tweet in which you tweeted out a starting block and said it has begun, or something along those lines. So
Yes.
yeah, can we expect BorpaSpin 2 on the horizon?
Let's say it's stuck at the moment. BorpaSpin 2 with a certain someone. He's also in the call, but no, it's the route is done. We just needed some time. Like, obviously we're all super busy at the moment with TMWT and some other projects that we should not mention. So there were a lot of other things that had priority in between. Also, like, Aguilar was also came in between for me. So yeah, I also just didn't have the time for a little bit. So we are super patient with this, and we will bring it at the right time, so everyone can enjoy. Let's say BorpaSpin on crack, because that BorpaSpin 2 is, oh my, that is that one is crazy.
I think it's safe to say it wouldn't be much of a surprise to most people if you didn't just make a sequel more of the same. I think we are definitely, maybe we are ready for, but maybe not truly ready for what BorpaSpin 2 might entail. But either way, we're definitely excited. This map is just so cool. It just broke so many new ground in lots of ways for a lot of people, and it's so cool to see it have this amount of longevity. And yeah, maybe we'll see some people still hunting AT on new ice for this in the future. I think it's definitely could be the case. So really cool stuff. This map, if you haven't checked it out before, if you weren't around when this came out, check out BorpaSpin. Really, really cool map. I think you did stream a little to work on this map, correct?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I usually try to do that with the projects that I'm allowed to stream, or those that are let's say at least announced and are allowed to show to public. So everyone can kind of follow my process as I map, because I think I have a very unique process, and I think everyone has in terms of mapping. But I do things very different than others in terms of testing. Where I look at in terms of when I put ice on my map. Yeah, I just test it over and over again and make sure that every possible line that is on the map works, and people will not slide out as much. Of course, it's always going to happen. But yeah, I try to make it as easy as possible for everyone. That's why my process is a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it's really, really cool to see your process and anybody else's process with streaming for that matter. It's something that you've been doing for quite some time. You've been streaming for several years. You did Rocket League for a while, and then when you got into TrackMania, you started streaming a lot of TrackMania. And I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts as well, but for a lot of people, streaming their mapping process is incredibly hard. It's just very difficult to kind of wrap their head around. They just see it as such a non-performative thing, so it's really hard to get into that mindset of streaming while mapping. But you are definitely one of the more notable people that is doing mapping streams. So I was just kind of curious. You mentioned about your specific style and enjoying showing that off. But is there anything else you can tell us about kind of your mindset about how you go about mapping on stream, and if that is kind of different from how you map off stream?
Yeah, so on stream, like I try to, and this is not always happening, to be fair, because I also have my own my own opinions, but I try to have the chat also give suggestions and make them understand what I'm doing and why I do certain things. But while I'm off stream, I usually I'm a little bit more open to everything, I would say. So I try like super creative stuff that I usually wouldn't do on stream because it looks weird. But that's usually how I come up with the best ideas. I guess I'm not confident enough to try that stuff on stream. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just different on stream sometimes, and that's why I also choose to not stream every single map that I make.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably the main thing that a lot of people feel, even with not just certain things that they feel comfortable on stream or certain things off, but just in general, like experimenting or using certain types of things on stream can apply a certain type of pressure. Like you feel like somebody's looking over your shoulder while you're messing something up or something. So I totally understand that difference in kind of on-stream or off-stream mapping. But still really cool to see that you are, in most scenarios with most maps, that you are either capable or willing to show us that you are putting yourself out there in that way. And yeah, I think it's an underrated type of streaming experience, like entertainment experience within TrackMania. It's more niche, I think. It's not going to appeal to as many people as a pro player playing a map or something, but I think it makes sense, and it's really cool that you're doing that. So anybody who hasn't subscribed or following Scarzor on Twitch, go ahead and do that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you've been streaming for quite a little while, all the way through when you joined Waypoint in 2021. At the same time as your fellow Dutchman Vixa. Some of you might have heard of Vixa. He's been around here a little bit. He makes some maps sometimes. Tell us about kind of when you joined Waypoint, what that was like. Because I know, as far as I know, when you joined, there wasn't a lot of, I guess, more ice-focused mappers on the team. And kind of, can you tell us a little bit what that looked like?
Yeah. So I just blocked myself, to be honest, in the post. I remember saying, hey, if you need someone that's specialized in ice, hit me up. It would be an honor. And yeah, after let's say 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I believe, I got a DM asking if I would want to join Waypoint. Of course, that was a complete no-brainer for me. Like that's something that I'm for sure interested in. Otherwise, I wouldn't be spending so much time in the editor. Quickly after that, I started experimenting with different styles because I wanted to expand my knowledge and also make it applicable to a wider area of maps. Because at that time I was only really making ice maps, which I try to step away a little bit more now. But yeah, I got some help from others as well that gave me some tips and tricks. For example, Kisla, he has helped me a lot with with other styles. Even people like Vixa as well, Agent Whiskey. They have all given me some tips in certain styles, and have worked a little bit with me to improve on that.
That's really cool to hear. I think, I mean, that's about as good of something that you could expect going into a team like Waypoint, is having all those talented people around you and being able to help you expand your skill sets and just kind of broaden your horizons in that way. Like you mentioned, they didn't really have any ice people when they contacted you, and you kind of put out those feelers and you did your little bit of plugging, as it were. Has that changed at all? Like, how would you say that landscape in terms of ice mapping or more just diversified mapping styles has changed within Waypoint since you've joined?
I think people are a little bit more open to it. I'm not sure, but obviously, like for example, Kisla has made a couple of ice maps with me for competitions. So for sure, people are a little bit more open to it, and it's in general it's super refreshing to see, for example, tech mappers or people that didn't really map in ice in general create an ice map, because that brings different influences to the style,
Yeah.
which could help others, and helped me for sure as well. Helped me build in a different way, so learning from others.
That's really cool to hear. I think, and the more we see ice having representation within the more like typical or competitive spheres of TrackMania and how people are playing the game, I think we'll see more and more influence. So it's really great to hear that more people are branching out and trying ice and experimenting with it. And yeah, I hope to see more of that in the future. And I'm sure, as much as you are getting into some other styles, I'm sure we'll still see a little bit of ice mapping from you in the future as well, and kind of seeing how that progresses. As far
100%.
as far as the future goes, one notable update that we can't not mention is that you recently announced earlier this month that you are officially part of the Nadeo staff. Can you tell us a little bit about how that came about?
Yeah. So I'm gonna be careful not saying too much. But I was reached out to take over some of the areas which Phoebe worked in. So it's more like a partnership with Nadeo, and I'll be helping out with some moderation duties and some of the management piece of different areas that they run. So I'm looking at the game itself, seeing if people have been misbehaving, breaching the service or the terms of service, and if they have been reported for that. I'm also helping out a little bit with club verification, for example. So we're also trying to prepare stuff for consoles. I don't have a release date either. I don't know. Let's just say soon TM.
Soon TM.
Yeah. So it's
TM.
Soon TM.
No, I'm excited. I'm excited about it for sure. So I'm helping out a couple of hours a week. It's been something really fun to do on the side, learning some new things, and contributing in general, contributing to the game that I've grown a passion for is really nice.
That's really great to hear. I think for a lot of people, getting that are more involved in the community, having more opportunities to get further involved in that community is great. And you are a fantastic person to have further involved in the community. I think that just goes without saying. So congratulations to you for having that. I guess the one other question is, does that mean that we're not going to see as many Scarzor maps if you're busier with other duties, or are we still going to get some good ones coming?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for that. No, you're definitely gonna see more from me, because I'll still be part of the community. I am a community person. I'm not a community manager. People think that I'm a community manager. I'm not. So just want to get that out of the way. I'm not. Okay. So this is not how my role is. I am not, but I will be still involved with the community. I'll be mapping. I'll be making sure that I have some output and I contribute in that area as well. So for sure, you can expect some maps for me. Like for example, I finalized one map today, and I've queued it in map review, and it has been well received. Python actually, is a new ice map. I wanted to try something really cool with that, in terms of scenery, something that hasn't been done on ice before, and yeah, I think I took the easiest route I could ever build. And yeah, just spent 74 hours on scenery on that, while the route has only been built in 1 hour. So it's a little bit crazy. It's not
Good
it's not the
ratio.
most it's not the most exciting and creative route that you will ever see from me. But I think it turned out really nicely, and I wanted to make sure that I had done this as well.
Huh? Yeah, I think it's really cool to hear. I didn't know that it was already out on map review, but little birdie did show me this trailer, and the map looks phenomenal. I think it is not a huge surprise that so much time was spent on the scenery, because it has such an incredible sense of atmosphere and just distinct look. I think it looks really cool. Seeing this type of thing in an ice map as well, I think is a little more rare. So overall, really awesome stuff. And yeah, if you see it in map review, give it a 5 stars. You know, give it some love in map review, and maybe download it and play it. Is it on TMX yet?
No, it's not.
It is
So
not,
the reason for that is because I want to try to make the competition as fair as possible.
Makes sense.
I also, to be honest, because I'm nadeo now, doesn't mean that I know if my map gets picked. I have the same process, so I will be going through map review, and I'll be eagerly waiting at 7 p.m. every day, see if Python ever comes up. If not, I don't know. Maybe I'll try again. Maybe I'll make some adjustments, or maybe I'll just release it on TMX. But I have to give a massive shout out here for the trailer here. Lakadal has made it for me. I really love it. I also got a thumbnail done by Prof 10. I think both of these names are very recognizable names within the community. I think everyone kind of knows these persons. So both of them, thanks again for what you did for me, because yeah, it made the project so much better. That trailer by Lakadal and the thumbnail by Prof 10, it's amazing.
Yeah, you were definitely correct. Those are some very recognizable names and are very good at what they do. Lakadol and Prof, obviously great mappers in their own rights, but their media creation abilities as well, with both videos, thumbnails, are really awesome. So really great to see all these great minds and talents coming together for this map. And yeah, we'll definitely keep our eyes peeled for this map coming out in the future, and we will definitely let you know on future episodes of the Author Time podcast when it is released. So stay tuned. Go ahead and give a follow. If you haven't followed already, what are you doing? Come on, give a follow to the Twitch channel here if you're watching us live, or if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. More videos, more podcasts coming every 2 Sundays. So really appreciate just you answering some questions. These are not the last you're hearing from Scarzor. He's sticking around. We're going to be going over some news, some maps, some items. And if you have a question for Scarzor that you did not hear answered, or you just have a question for any one of us, again, drop it in the chat if you're watching along with us live, and we will circle back to it at the end of the podcast in our Q&A section. So we're going to transition here quickly over to some mapping related news. So the first thing we wanted to talk about were the KMC, the Carlberg Mapping Competition. The results are in. For anybody who wasn't familiar, this was the mapping competition related to classic maps. So we saw a lot of different interpretations of that style. A lot of people coming to the table with a lot of different ideas. But at the end of the day, there can only be one winner and or winners. And this is the final results. So it was really cool that they actually published the scoring publicly, which is kind of cool to see that transparency. And we get a pretty cool breakdown of how these maps were interpreted. We're not going to go through all of them. We just don't have the time. But our first place winner was ASICS and Arian. Made this map called Cataract, which is a really cool map. just kind of take a look at it again. It's kind of a more classic tech map, and just really cool look and feel. Go check it out if you haven't already. Next map in this list was a speed tech map from Kisla and Shorts. You can't go wrong with this duo. Just a banger map from them. And if you haven't checked this one out already, go ahead and do that. Transitional, really fast, really crazy, really punishing, but a good challenge. So if you want to play a really fun and challenging speed tech map, go check that one out. And then I believe third place, was Competitive Convergence by Wizzy and Jibibbo. There's no video for this one, but it's another comp tech map, really solid. And if you haven't checked it out already, go ahead and do it. And other mapping related news, we got an official response from Nadeo, from Hylas, about some of the feedback related to the most recent spring campaign. We're not going to go too deep in this thread and try to pull it apart right now, but it is live. There's kind of a mixed response to this, I know. Some of it, I think, is just generally due to literally things being lost in translation. Some things are maybe coming across differently based on the language barrier and other things. But overall, I think it was good to see that they were responding to the community. And you can kind of read the thread yourself and form your own opinions about it. But yeah, if you want to check out that thread, the official Hylas Twitter account, you can go check that out there. In other spring 2023 related news, the community campaign that we talked about last week coming out is officially out. You can go check it out. It's organized by Birdie and had a huge list of mappers mapping for this, including Agraboo in this call. Did some mapping for this. A lot of great maps. I think definitely has a different than a typical campaign feel, but had a lot of similar vibes. I think it's clear that even though they pulled this together really quickly, that a lot of effort went into this. So shout out to Birdie and everybody else who worked on this. You can find the club. It is called the Community Spring 23 Club, and there's a campaign and a discovery room for that. So
I'd just like to mention that Ellipse also was a mapper for this. And I don't know, Scarzor, did you end up duoing with Hank? Or
In the end, I didn't have time.
Okay.
When the deadlines were presented, I couldn't find the time anymore.
Okay.
So no.
I wasn't sure how that came through, but I just wanted to mention because I know I wasn't the only one involved.
okay. Sorry, I neglected to mention Ellipse. I'm not trying to push him under his rock. Just spaced on that. But either way, this campaign, really cool campaign. From all these folks pulling together this really cool campaign. And I definitely makes sense that if there were deadlines, you couldn't make it work because this was pulled together pretty quickly. These types of projects with this quality and this scope are usually much more drawn out. So the fact that this was pulled together so quickly is extremely surprising and impressive.
Yeah, I think we managed to finish this one in like 3 weeks from the start, I think.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
Was it 2 weeks?
It's barely even been 3 weeks since the first campaign came out, I think. And the organization for it started like the 5th or the 6th or something like that. And everything was done the 17th. All maps completed and checked on the 17th. So almost within 10 days, which is absolutely crazy.
That is pretty wild.
Part of it.
Yeah, as Lakadel says in the chat, Kem had like the organization for all of this, and holy, he knew what he was doing, to say the least.
Yeah,
everything went like as smooth as butter.
Wow. Well, huge shout out to everybody involved in organizing, mapping, anything and everything related to this campaign. I think, when the community really bands together to make something happen, they make it happen. So huge shout out to all those folks that were involved. One other thing that was pretty interesting that came out this week, the last couple weeks, was this video by Sergeant Big Bird. He has put out a couple videos in the past, kind of going deeper into the code of TrackMania and optimizing it and understanding what's going on with it. And he talked about slide outs on ice and some more specific things as far as at what speeds and at what angles we find that these slide outs encounter these slide outs, and that it's not as simple as it may be on the surface. It's a really interesting watch, and I would suggest anybody that is curious about these types of more technical aspects of the game, go give it a look. I think it's also really interesting looking at this type of video in regards to the Open Planet plugins around actually playing with assistants or utilizing assistants in terms of mapping or testing or practicing TrackMania. There's been quite a bit of controversy in the past around these plugins, but I think it'll be really interesting to see how, when something like Open Planet Learning Mode or Practice Mode is released, what that looks like and how that impacts the mapping scene, the playing scene in general. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that in particular.
No, in general, I think these plugins, if used correctly, I think they can only be beneficial and help people to understand different things about, in this case, ice. So, in a way, like I have the perspective that I would always be happy if others can learn something new. So I'm supportive of this kind of thing, but I can also see the other side. I can understand why people wouldn't like something like this, because it looks like you're having assistance in the game.
Right.
But in general, for educational purposes, I think this is great.
Yeah, I think for education, definitely, but I'm also the opinion that tools like this, editor trails, if I don't know if the SD plugins ever become public or anything like that. I think these things will be like very beneficial for mapping, in the sense that it's kind of like it helps to take some of the trial of testing out of things, which I don't think anybody's gonna fault someone for using a tool like this to be able to help better understand their map, because I think at the end of the day, quality is the thing that matters most, and these tools help you get to the quality sooner and better.
Yeah, I think there's always, throughout TrackMania, in various forms and ways that this conversation has been started, there's been issues or conflict or disagreements about how to map and what tools to utilize that basically kind of come down to some idea of what is a natural or normal way to map, and then something that's cheating. Whether that's as simple as using free blocking to create certain things, or it's using different Open Planet plugins or other custom items or something. But at the end of the day, like you said, I think if it's in the pursuit of quality of things that can be given to other players, I don't see much issue with it at all. So, but I think there will always be people with different opinions. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops in the future, and if and when this comes out, these plugins are released publicly and are available to be used, you will definitely be hearing about it in the news section here on the Author Time podcast. If you haven't followed, follow. All right, well, that's it for the news in terms of the mapping scene, in terms of what we've talked about, or what we selected to talk about at least. We're going to now take a look at a couple maps that came out in the last couple weeks that we wanted to note. A lot of great maps coming out in the last couple weeks. We couldn't talk about all of them, but we selected just a couple that we wanted to highlight in particular. First of which, fresh in a lot of people's mind because it recently did get Track of the Day, but a new banger from Saffron. I think that goes without saying when you're talking about Saffron map. But her new map, Observer, came out a little over a week ago. Recently got Track of the Day. Absolutely phenomenal, wacky, wild, speed fun, reactor, plastic shenanigans. Super unique map. Super fun to play. Go check this map out.
Yeah.
Really cool map.
Yeah. Really good integration of the new light items. Just
That's
kind
right,
of
yeah.
all around the place on this map. Gives it a really cool amount of like detailing.
Yep. I mean, I also noticed when I see maps like these, I usually just like are in awe. I don't drive them, but I'm just like flying around in Camp 7, like looking at stuff and seeing how stuff is built up. So the thing I noticed, you see like the colors like blue and purple and such. I think I know where she got the idea from. Yeah, so basically, in the new update in December that we got, there we also got new like animated banners, I will call them, like on the billboards, and one of them is like this like glowy, wavy, like pink, blue, turquoise, I think it's called, like waves, and it kind of fits the theme like perfectly, and having that all over the map is kind of cool, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see it on the finish here too. It's yeah, so well put together.
Extremely well put together. Just a really, really incredible map. And just overall with atmosphere and creating these really unique environments with pure vanilla scenery or vanilla plus in some cases. Saffron is at the top of the top in terms of people that are able to do that effectively. So you can always expect bangers in terms of scenery and routes from Saffron. This one is no different. There's also this RPG that came out, space-themed RPG. It's not a super long one. It's got a 4-minute AT. It seems like a lot of people are really speedrunning it. From Histo. Really cool.
Yes,
map.
this was so good. I liked it.
Yep, rock.
Yeah, I liked
rock.
it. Nice.
Brock.
Yeah. Anything else anybody else wanted to say about this map in particular?
It's just
It's
the
on
concept,
play
right?
later lists.
Yeah.
I
did.
thought I saw somewhere that it's been confirmed that there will be at least one more map in the Artifact series, so that'll be
Nice.
cool as well.
Well, can't wait to see that. They kind of seems like they're really just kind of keep pushing, creating these really cool concept maps. So shout out to Histo, and yeah, really cool map. If you're looking for a fun RPG map with a special theme, go check it out. Artifact Act 3, Kepler, and stay tuned for more. If there's another one in the future, you'll be finding out about it right here on the Author Time podcast. Moving on, we got a new map from Prof. Another classic Prof speed tech map called Futureland. Oh, where's the video? Here it is.
I just love the kind of like retro wave aesthetic, and it's pulled off so well here with just, these like big black silhouetted structures highlighted by the bright pinks, the bright blues. It just all looks really amazing, and the route itself flows exactly. Prof is obviously amazing at these things, so really great map.
Yeah, very good.
Very good.
I want to highlight Prof's scenery skills here a little bit. Hey, look, this guy is literally a scenery built AI. Like, look how good this looks.
Yeah,
Crazy. He has also helped me, by the way, with Python for the concept. So shout out again for Prof. Look how amazing this looks.
I think it's
so nice.
just so cool how for a long time Prof's big thing was making these like cool custom scenery maps that kind of like take you to another world and everything, and then he just turned around and was like, oh, you guys want vanilla sceneries? Yeah, okay, I can do those amazing, like some of the best that you've seen in this game too. Like,
Yep.
What can't you do?
Yep. Got a lot of skills in his wheelhouse, clearly. Bringing a lot to the table. And this map is just another representation of that, like he has mentioned. Just so many cool things going on with this map. Solid route, really great atmosphere, retro scenery. Great map from Prof. Go check it out. Futureland. Out now. And not yet track of the day. Probably will be soon.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tell us, Scarzor.
Okay.
You know now, right?
Yeah.
Another map that was brought up was Atomic Ascent by Nicolette and Nazgor. looks like it was referenced in this video. Maybe I could find it here quickly. But yeah, anybody want to say anything about this map?
I mean, I remember playing the routes because if I remember correctly, this one had it's actually kind of old, but like got like a rewind with like new scenery and everything. I'm not sure if I'm like 100% correct on this, but it's like a speed fun, speed tech tech map. It's really cool. Yeah, speed tech. So yeah, and it has a lot of rocks. Very good.
Very good.
I like how it does a really great job at mixing the custom rocks and custom scenery pieces with these like very imposing vanilla structures with this cool like orange highlighting around everything that you can see in the thumbnail here.
Mm-hmm.
And the route itself, speed tech and pretty beginner friendly, but definitely something that like people can push pretty far and pretty fast, which is always really great to see with speed tech. As I want to get into more speed tech mapping, and this is like the kind of map that I'd be happy to make doing that.
Yeah, I think it's really great that you're pointing out alongside just the route being so well put together and so easily pushable to different limits, like the art style and the thematic direction of this map. I think we're seeing that just more and more, especially with more vanilla-centered maps, because it's easier to do, I'd say, in general, with a custom scenery map, to have a certain item set and run with it to create some sort of environment that feels very thematically consistent. But we're seeing with approach to just kind of not just maps that are just scenery or just vanilla or kind of a mix of both, but more consistent like art direction, like right out of the gate. And that's really cool to see, to make maps stand out, to make them have really unique designs. And I think with both the artificial and more organic type scenery in a map like this or others, just really, really well done. And yeah, if you haven't checked out this map, Atomic Ascent by Nikolic and Nazgor, go check it out. We got another map as well from the dynamic duo of Deadfish and ASCII. Put out this map called Xanth. This one I know is in this video, so I could show a little of this. This map, I think, was just really, really well done. Deadfish, when he... Oh, okay. Sorry, my YouTube was glitching there, seemed like for a second. Deadfish, I think when he puts his mind to it, is just really talented at making these types of really just fast and crazy, like, not crazy necessarily, but really fast and tight routes. And he really clearly put a lot of effort into utilizing the different possibilities made by the new Juice roadgrass set, as well as kind of transitions between dirt and roadgrass and black platform and all these different kind of combinations to create something really fun and unique and very huntable. Yeah, overall, really, really like this track. Anybody else? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think Deadfish literally poops routes. That's what I wanted to say. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, true. I mean,
He makes so many. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's true. It's like every now and then I just see him mapping something, and I was like, "Yeah, did you rework that part of the routes?" No, this is a completely new one. The other one is finished like 2 days ago. So it's like, yeah, he literally poops routes.
Yeah, I think it always somehow, I keep thinking it'll stop surprising me, but the rate at which he puts out maps and the quality for the rate in which he puts these routes out is just phenomenal. So,
and the same goes
let's not forget the quality, indeed.
Yeah.
Same goes for ASCII in these sceneries that he's just able to get done so quickly and, effectively like using up, a bunch of space, and being able to like put together something like this so quick is also something that's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that maybe not a big surprise, but ASCII is one of the most talented people utilizing the ASCII set in terms of his ability to utilize it effectively. which, like I said, not a super big surprise because he made it with his own kind of direction of his own. I mean, of course, he tailored it to lots of people and a more general public as a whole, but just naturally because of his own approach to scenery, very tailored towards his style. So
super unfair. He knew the set already.
he what?
He knew the set already.
He knew the set.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfair. He knew the set. It's cheating. Yeah, great map. Go check it out. Xanth, Dead Fish and ASCII. And then we had a couple of maps. There's too many to mention from the Community Spring campaign that were pretty great, but just wanted to highlight a couple here. This was one from Sophie, which is the Community Spring map 14.
Yeah, I put this in here specifically to talk about this one because this one's picked up a lot of love. I think it's the most awarded map in the map pack by far because it's a bobsled track that does a lot more with it than just, trying to like perfect speed and like entrances into corners. There's lots of different transitions. I mean, even just the start transition of, ramp onto bobsled is like really cool and unique and kind of shows like different ways that bobsled can be used and hopefully be able to see people like see the creativity in this route and be able to take it and make more varied and more, I'd say, more interesting bobsled maps. I think it's fair to say that bobsled sometimes can get a bit boring, but this map is anything but.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a really, really great explanation. Yeah, this map has a kind of the perfect amount of bobsleigh to other elements to make it still feel like a core bobsleigh experience without making it overly repetitive or overly punishing and just, like you said, based on a single entrance to a single bobsleigh type of thing. So really great stuff from Sophie here. Go check out this map and all the others, of course, in that campaign. Really solid. And then the other one we wanted to give a shout out to was this mixed FS map from Intax, which is also in the Community Spring campaign. And the more recent update regarding this map is that it has been selected for the latest or the newest upcoming Hot Pursuit map that is going to be starting here pretty soon. So definitely, if you are interested in the Hot Pursuit series or wanted to find out more information about that and how that works, head over on to the TMA Discord, either by direct link, which might be in the description, or just go to tma.gg and find out more information about that there. Yeah, really solid map again from Intax. And if you want to check out this map and any or other of the Community Spring maps, they are in that club that we mentioned earlier, Community Spring 23. All right, from there, we're going to move on to a couple item sets that came out recently that were pretty interesting. So just taking a look at, first of all, these clean wall ride helpers. So this is a map put out by Loon, an item set put out by Loon. There's been a couple of these kind of border helpers for these types of items before, but these ones were made with no shadow bugs, and they're stylized and set up to be compatible with all the way too many type sets, sets of items. So it could be useful for lots of different reasons. So if you want to integrate these into your maps, go ahead and go check this out. It's by Loon. Another set that came out recently. It's a bit of an interesting one, and it's as the creator says, it's mostly for item creation purposes. It's not really the items themselves, although it could be. But it's just a set of items with all the different textures, with different sizes and dimensions. So it can be useful for either selecting a texture when creating an item, or overlapping of textures, or just implementing them in various places and spots in your map. So cool little tool put out here by Kami Kalash.
Yeah, it can also be used for easier to see like how the mods are gonna be looking like in game.
True. Yeah.
Yep. So it's a good way of just seeing it right there and then.
Kind of like a texture pack viewer that you used to get in like Minecraft and stuff. A lot of
Yeah.
cool applications for this. So shout out to Comic Kalash for this set. We also had a couple sets really recently coming out from Microvert, which were this Regenwald set, which was these items that could be found in his map, Regenwald, that came out not too long ago. You see there's these foliage and these kind of signs and just some different random items that he made specifically for this map. I'm sure alongside some others that he had made for previous maps or more general projects, as well as this Solstoria set, which, as you could imagine, was made as part of this set. And this includes the couple of huts that he made specifically for this map, that, again, alongside some others that he made in other sets. So if you like Microvert items, you like some of the items in his maps, go check out his item.exchange page where you can find these sets and these items along with many others that he's put out in the past.
Yeah, something that's like really cool about these two sets is that he was speed mapping and speed modeling the last 2 or 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, and basically created all of these items from scratch and also the maps from scratch in like over the weekends. So it's kind of cool to see like the quality that he's able to do in such amount of time, especially when it comes to just fast modeling.
Yeah, I think it's always crazy to see somebody who has able to pump out this level of quality stuff in the amount of time that they do. And it's just always great to see item makers that are just putting their items out into the community for other people to use and kind of grow the amount of tools that are in the repertoire of other mappers that maybe don't have the same skill sets or just kind of need that inspiration to get headed in that direction. So shout out to Microvert again. If you want to check out these items or any others that he's been putting out, go ahead over to his item exchange page. So that's going to be it for the items and item sets that we're going to be talking about today. From there, we're going to shift over to a somewhat familiar category, if you guys may remember from the first episode of the Off Time podcast. We kind of started a segment that we're going to do about once a month, about every other episode, where we talk about a rising star mapper. So we bring up one mapper. Of course, there's so many mappers, but one mapper that maybe is not getting much recognition or as much as recognition as they deserve, that is kind of finding their way in the mapping community and is on the up and up and somebody to look out for as a rising star. And today, that rising mapper that we are highlighting is XOctoAbsWX. I have no idea if I'm going through that name or pronouncing it correctly. It could be that the X's are, I think he goes by Octo. So these X's are probably ignored, but this mapper, he's been around for over a year and he's been putting out a handful of maps, but only more recently kind of starting to get some traction. These are some really cool maps and thought we just kind of hop in game really quickly and show you some of these. Ignore all of the ice pun maps I have downloaded by Scarzor, including Chill Out, This Is Your Demise, The Hills Have Ice, Ice on the Price, It Slipped My Mind. Yes, these are all classic Scarzor puns. We love to see it. But yeah, we'll take a look at... We have a message from Lackadol, who clearly liked those a lot. But yeah, like this guy, he's been putting out more maps and showing a lot of improvement. A lot of mixed styles, a lot of vanilla plus going on. What are your kind of some of your guys' thoughts about his maps?
I personally,
so-
I really like them. Go ahead, Elips. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what I usually do when I get home from work, I just usually go down on the TrackMania Exchange plugin and just sit down and just like play some maps. And of course, I look through thumbnails, and this map Intertwined really caught my eye. And since then, I have been keeping an eye out for his name. I mean, this is not like the only map that is like really cool from him.
Yeah.
The other one that both me and Agra and Scarzor played like before the podcast. I don't think I'm able to pronounce it probably. You wanna try, Agra?
This one?
Food, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
If-
this one is
right?
like speed fun grass really fast.
I might
Yeah,
have done some stuff here.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
Agraboo.
he has tons of
Yeah,
stuff.
we got an Agraboo world record, so we'll definitely watch this.
Yeah, that happened within the past hour before this podcast. Yeah, I mean, I think people know I'm a enjoyer of maps like this, and this one has some pretty good flow, some pretty cool parts. I like this combination coming up here, like coming out of this and then wanting to stay tight
Mhm.
and to the right to get over to this corner, stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, on each of the maps that I've tested and played from him today, there were some gear issues and stuff, but the ideas and the flow really seem to be there, and that's the kind of thing that's like harder to build
Yeah.
up. So it's good when you see somebody have that from whenever they can get to that.
Absolutely. I think you're completely right. I think the technical execution is something that comes with a lot more time and just kind of better practice and more understanding of the game and just getting better at playing the game. But he's clearly demonstrating a lot of both effort in the maps and just a good sense of flow, good sense of balance of scenery in lots of places. I think it's also great to see with newer mappers or more up and coming mappers, them trying different things with scenery and routes. And he's definitely been trying different concepts in terms of the execution of the scenery as well as scenery styles. And he's been putting out different types of routes too. Mixed routes, grass routes, kind of grass tech, speed fun, different types of things. So kind of finding his comfort zone, finding areas that he or she likes to map. And I think it's all just really great stuff to see from Octo.
I like the backwards waterfall on the start here. Why don't people do that more? I feel like that's like a pretty, like, I'm gonna have to start doing that because I feel like that's a pretty obvious use of those that I just really haven't seen much.
That's a good point as well. Like some definitely unique approaches to some of those elements. But yeah, anybody else had anything they wanted to add about Octa?
Yeah, I think in general there's a lot of things that has already been said that I could echo, but I hope they keep mapping and keep pumping out quality maps, because even though they were not necessarily the styles that I usually enjoy, I really had a good time on those maps, and that's why this person stood out to me. I think I played Intertwined like 2 or 3 weeks ago in map review, and that's when I caught eye of this person as well. This is kind of refreshing to me, that style, even though it's also speed fun. So I hope this person keeps mapping. The couple gear problems I've also noticed, but to be honest, we've all been there. It's kind of tough to get right. So that's a
Absolutely.
small thing. It's a small thing, happens to all of us.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, completely right. And yeah, just overall, really great to see everything Octo's doing. Again, if you want to check it out, and any of the maps we talked about, their most recent map from, I think, a couple weeks ago at this point. Let me check the date exactly, but is this map Intertwined? It got featured by Aibo, so it's really great to see. But still, overall, a little under the radar for a lot of people. So go check out, go give them a favorite if you like their stuff, and so you can keep tabs on what they're putting out in the future. Go give them a favorite on TMX. It's X Octo ABSWX. But from that is the main section of our podcast in terms of the interview and the news and whatnot. So we are now going to transition over to the final section, which is a live Q&A. This is for either myself, Scarzor, Ellipse, Agribu, or any and all of us combined. We've got a couple questions I think people had asked ahead of time. But if you have not asked a question and you got something that we didn't talk about that you were hoping to kind of get some opinions on from Scarzor or the rest of us, go ahead and drop those questions in the chat. But with that being said, let's hop right into that Q&A. So do we have a question to start off with?
Yeah, we have one for Scarzor. After SK asks, okay, that one. Okay, after the ice updates, are there any new ice features or block combinations you have discovered?
I want to say yes, but I'm not sure if this was possible before, because I didn't really try, to be honest. But yes, I have noticed something pretty interesting, which will like when you come out of an ice slide, it will give you somewhat of pretty good or insta grip almost on tarmac. But it's unfortunately on a map that is currently confidential, so I can't talk about the map or how it looks like. But I did notice something, and I tried to implement it on a route that is to be released still.
Glad to hear that. I think it's always really fun to see new mechanics, especially with things like ice, where there's just so many different possibilities when you don't have to keep your car straight or whatnot. That can be achieved, and can't wait to see that. I'm sure the rest of us are very anxiously awaiting that as well. Really interested to see what that ends up being.
Kind of want to ask a bit of a follow-up to that, I guess, which is, I guess maybe like a twofold thing of how the ice update has kind of like affected your mapping style with it, but also maybe I'm curious as well because I know a Grillier and maybe some other maps were built pre-update, and then update comes out and then you have to make adjustments. So maybe going into like how that process was like and how this overall adjustment to the new ice physics, I'm gonna put that in scare quotes, has been.
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really changed anything. Yeah, I'm a firm believer of proper testing. Before the changes, I did proper testing. After the changes, I still do proper testing. Also, like after the update, obviously there was a in between section for Aguilar, which I built it before the update, and it was released after. I think there was only one minor part that we changed, and it was not even on the ice; it was on the tarmac.
Interesting.
Personally, I am not really adjusting to it that much. But when I see something odd happening, like slowdowns coming from tarmac or going to tarmac, and then entering ice again, that's when I adapt. But I think that's natural. Like if you see a problem, um, at least from my perspective, I try not to blame the update because I have the tools in my hand to fix that kind of thing. So I can still build what I want, but if it's gonna give a slowdown, that's gonna affect the experience of the player. While I could have done things differently. So I try to look at the positive side of things at all times. Could there have been some stuff that has been that would have been better? Yes, absolutely. But we have to deal with what we have. So
Right.
I try to deal with what we have in the best way possible. And this is something that I always want others to look at as well. So I'm very well spoken about it. I know it's not always appreciated, but I'm a very honest guy, and that's how I approach it. If I see a problem, I work around that problem and I try to fix that problem instead of looking at the negative side of things.
I think that's a good attitude to take towards it.
I totally agree. I think that's just like you said in general. I think that concept can be applied towards lots of things because at the end of the day, there are not just with ice slides or slide outs or slowdowns or steering adjustment bugs. there's just lots of wacky physics and things in TrackMania that maybe shouldn't be there. But at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the mapper to be aware of those things and to map with respect to how TrackMania works, regardless of whether or not it's fair. I know I've had my own run-ins with this in the past. I know a lot of people hated the ending on Boing, my map that I put out, that end with the flip into backwards like SD, because TrackMania backwards driving is bugged, and people didn't understand how to do your inputs to make it consistent. I did, but that didn't mean it was good just because there was a workaround. At the end of the day, the backwards driving is bugged, so I shouldn't have done it. That's the type of thing that ultimately it does fall on the mappers. Even if there is something buggy within the game code, it's our responsibility to try to deliver the most user-friendly experience to the player. So totally get that. Do we have any other questions that we're waiting for us?
We got one from Juice. So I guess this is probably aimed at all of us, since kind of like ice and such.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the shape of the top surface you would imagine for the perfect road ice? Probably aimed for Winter Mania, or just like a general new blocks, just like the road grass set that they did. Do you think the flat one that we already have now works perfectly, or do you think there would be another shape that would work, Scarzor?
Sausage, but steeper.
I have to admit that I haven't really used the set yet, because I have a very vanilla style of building. Sometimes I use the bi-slope, or if I use them, I use the Flink roadblocks still. So I really haven't used Juice's set yet, but so I'm yet to find out what would work. But in terms of shapes, I am not 100% sure. I kind of like the bankings and all that, because you can do some really cool stuff with that. So immediately my answer goes to that.
Okay.
You joked about sausage shaped, but I honestly think I'd be interested in like a more shallow kind of sausage shape. I think that could work pretty well with ice, because it kind of like can be used to help force, or to like kind of like catch you in a way, but still make it so that you have to have some level of precision with it. I think it'd be maybe a little more interesting than something flat. I don't know if people would be ready for the normal kind of like concave road and like Carlberg ice turns. Lord, that sounds scary.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds interesting though. Like maybe there is something there. I mean, these types of things come from a lot of experimentation. I know from conversations with Juice, it's a lot of trial and error. And ultimately, you have to come up with some idea first and just try it, So even if the idea of Carlberg ice sounds ridiculous, maybe there is a way to implement it in a way that is fun or consistent, So, and it'd definitely be interesting. Also, like you said, like a more convex shape, not maybe as dramatic as sausage, but something like that to create interesting new opportunities. That also could be cool. I think it just comes down to just trying different things. I don't think it's hard for us to know exactly. I think like Scarzor mentioned, like kind of the bi-slope and more vanilla plus, or otherwise the Flink blocks that are available do have a pretty consistent feel. I don't think those necessarily need to be fixed. So this would be kind of something different, and could go a lot of different ways. Yeah. What other questions we got?
Actually, I just want to say, I think the ideal road ice already exists. It's called bobsled juice, where there's way too many bobs.
That is true. We have yet to see a way too many bob update.
Be careful, or else it's gonna like fill up our hard drives with like bobsleigh items.
Well, I mean, the thing is like but like the magnets, it's something you can opt in. At the end of the day, it's your choice, and I know I would opt in. I would say
Yeah.
give me that give me that set. I want it now.
I mean, would be kind of cool, but then you need to delete all of the items first. I mean, because the bobsleigh item itself, like the mesh, is like really high poly.
Oh yeah, true.
And especially the turns. So like when you like drive the turn, it's like really smooth. It's not gonna be like that if you have the same like low polyness of a road dirt
That's true.
item.
That's true.
So yeah, poor PC man, a poor hard drive.
Well, maybe if Scarzor can change the limit on how many items we can have. Scarzor is just in control of all of that now. I'm just going to assume that. So you know,
Yeah, we need
please
more file size, man.
make number bigger, Scarzor. Thank you very much.
Super sorry, can't do that.
Just because I said that, he's going to lower it. Oh shit.
Oh no.
Oh, no, in the mud.
All right, what else we got? So, question from Isirix. When will Juice Guy be employed by Nadeo to add more vanilla blocks to TrackMania? Not that the current ones are bad, but grassword items and all could be totally vanilla item as well. Good question. Scarzor probably in charge of hiring at Nadeo, right? As well. Yeah. I
In
think,
charge of everything while I'm at it, right?
Yeah. He's just CEO now. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the general underlying sentiment, I think Juice could do extremely well if actually hired by Nadeo for a specific purpose. I think that goes without saying. He's very talented, has been already putting out so much good stuff.
Carrying the whole mapping community on his back.
Yeah, carrying the mapping community on his back, exactly. And I guess because, I mean, the more general underlying thing is, you know, kind of wondering where we're going to see more of this from Nadeo itself. And what that looks like, what a new surface and what new actual game content as far as mechanics goes and what that'll look like. And I guess really hard to say when that will happen. But maybe we'll find out in the future. And you'll be hearing about it first here on Author Time.
Good plug.
Yeah, you gotta get the plugs in, of course. Yes. Gotta see Road Magnet really soon, says Juice in chat. So that'll be cool to see.
Yep. And also, I see Magnet Ice in the chat. There's actually a way to make that.
I was about to say this.
Yeah, okay. So when me and Scarzor first like our first collab, it's a map called Snøfjell. I had an idea for a start where like start high up in the mountain, and I had no clue about mapping at the time, so I just like, yo, we should just make something like zoof, you go straight down. And I saw that I newly understood about like the no grip effects. So I basically made some blocks where you have no grip and magnet at the same time. And that makes you like stick to the surface while also ice slides. It's not the same, but it's not too far from like, yeah, the original. So it's possible, but it's gonna be like popping like no grip up on your screen every time you go onto a block.
Mm-hmm. No grip has always been kind of an enigma in TrackMania. It's one of those things that is like ice, but not quite. It's like it's kind of, I don't know. There's the phrase is I'm losing the phrase right now for it, but kind of that uncanny valley, I guess you'd say, where it feels familiar but also totally not familiar in some circumstances. But overall, I think maybe a little underutilized. So I've played with it a little in the past with no grip on different surfaces and whatever, and I'm sure there are more ways we'll see no grip used in the future in interesting ways. So if you want to be one of those people, go try out what Ellipse said. Ellipse, official advocate for magnetic ice.
Oof.
So,
oh no.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first, yeah. This is breaking news. We got a question from Snippin. What made you guys curious about mapping, and what made you stick to mapping? Okay, so that'll be probably different for all of us. Let Scarzor start with that one.
For me, it's actually a pretty personal story. So I started mapping because I was dealing with a dark period in life, and it kept my mind away from all the crap that was happening. So it was kind of therapy for me. So for me, it helped me deal with situations and putting my creativity in the game, keeping my mind away from what's happening. So that got me into mapping. But what really kept me into mapping was I don't know, maybe the positive responses to what I created, because for me it was just therapy at that time. But then people actually enjoyed it, which I didn't expect. So I just started making more and more, and yeah, just also developed myself and got better. So yeah, I think I have a very different story to that than maybe some others, but that was what it did for me.
Great to hear that. We'll just keep it going counterclockwise, so to speak, to Agraboo.
Mine is how I got into it. Definitely way different than Scarzor. Because I started playing TrackMania on. I mean, I'd started in TMNF sooner, but with 2020, I started in like spring of 2021, and I was playing on my old laptop, which I think is infamous amongst people that know me as a piece of shit.
Yep.
Just absolutely horrible. Like, I was needing to play. I wasn't even sure if Tweaker was around when I originally started, which was like
Not when you
really
started,
bad.
no.
Yeah, no. So, back then it was just like playing like 30 to 40 FPS at best, and just having to like skip blender tracks and such. And so at a certain point, I think I got interested in the editor because of my frustrations with just playing the game on the whole. In that I was like, well, you know what? If it's just going to be so much of a pain to, like play and hunt all the time, I'm just going to go try making maps instead. And I got, I started making maps, and I was like, oh, I actually kind of like this. Because being an editor was something that it's like, yeah, even if it's like slower for me than it is for other people, placing blocks in editor is something that anyone can do pretty frame, like without having to worry about frames or anything like that. Uh, and so that was what got me into it. And then what's kept me around for it is kind of twofold. At first, it started off with this kind of like drive that I had to try making like basically at least one map in every kind of style, which I think if people have seen the maps that I make, I don't really have a specific like one style that I stick to. I make a bunch of different maps and a bunch of different surfaces, different gears, different ways of doing things. And so, there was that original drive that kept started, but I think as the quality of my mapping started picking up, I think that started being the thing that I enjoyed most, was making good, quality maps. And like Scarzor said as well, the reception from people was definitely something that kept me wanting to keep going with this.
Great stuff. I think it totally makes sense. Again, very definitely different than it's very interesting how those things are different between different people, but all the while still very understandable, and I think very relatable for a lot of people. What about you, Elips?
For me, kind of in the middle of those two, I guess. Okay. So basically, when I started or got to know about TN 2020, it was like around the time where virtual blew up, like spring or like early 2021, and I got because I had like the Twitch Prime, you got like the 3-month free subscription,
Yeah, the
and
same
from
thing.
then on, yeah. So since I've been here, but when it comes to mapping, I didn't know about track of the day until like way later because in the main menu I just switched around and suddenly found something called map review. Ooh, from there it started. Also found like the editor like straight in. I think it was after like a few days only. I got to meet Vixa, and someone showed me about the item exchange, and of course I found the rocks. And since then I have been, yeah, mainly focusing on scenery, but yeah, I'll try to like make a lot of different stuff. I mean, it's kind of the same that Agra said. At first, I wanted to like make one map in each like style, like one grass, one dirt, and so on and so on. And now it's more over to like what I kind of enjoy making, like grass, dirt mixed, uh, ice, and then somewhat tech. And what kept me mapping, or like what, yeah, um, basically not the feedback, but like seeing people having fun on what you create is like a really big drive to continue. Especially for track of the day, like seeing a lot of the live streams, YouTube videos, like about something that you created, was amazing. And it, of course is still amazing. And of course in TrackMania now you can there's not only track of the day that I try to map for, it's like competitions, we have like campaigns and such, and just trying to make what other people like is and getting like the seeing that people actually enjoy what you have been creating is amazing. So yeah, that's what has kept me going to now. Kind of cool.
Yeah, totally. I think I definitely agree. I think a lot of things
Yeah.
everybody here has touched on is, it is great to see people just taking something that you've created and having their own experience from it. And I'm sure all of us remember pretty clearly, like whenever our first time we got track of the day, like what that felt like, and just seeing everybody descend on your map and start tearing it to shreds, and what that feels like and looks like. It's a really special feeling. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess from my standpoint, also probably very different than the other people here. I kind of came out the gate swinging with mapping in terms of like the appeal for me, because I was a very long-term player of the Trials series. If anybody's familiar with that, it's another time trials based motorized vehicle arcade racing game. So it kind of translated over to TrackMania quite a bit, and there are lots of people within the Trials community that have become TrackMania players and vice versa. Most notably Novastar, Aris, TFG, a couple guys that are really fantastic, both Trials and TrackMania players. But I came from that game. I started in 2021. I had never heard of TrackMania, really played it at all. I think I probably saw a virtual video and was like, I'm going to download this. And I had been playing Trials for a long time, and I'd been mapping for several years within that game. And it's a very similar concept in terms of building tracks for people to play, community focused, community driven scene in terms of what is being played. So it just really kind of was a continuation of that for me. I got into TrackMania, and my immediate thought was like, oh, what can I do? What can I create? And the longevity for me was creating something new and something different, because I saw what everybody else was doing in TrackMania, and I would think, oh, like, I haven't seen much of this before. What if I can make that something interesting? And trying to execute a concept, and then kind of once I was done with that one thing, just moving on to the next, and like that drive of searching for something new and different to try to bring to the table and present as something, as an experience that people haven't gone through. I think kind of leaning on leaning outside of my area of expertise in where I'm lacking in technical execution, but trying to lean further towards that novelty aspect. And that's what really kind of kept it going for me, and something that I'm still chasing to this day is the new experience, the new concept, the new mechanic, or just new theme or something. And that's what's maybe able to kind of keep the ball rolling over time and not get burnt out, not get tired of it, not get bored of it. So still love it. Yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Yep.
Quick question from Scarzor. Also, when Interlocking 2, I don't know. He's retired, obviously, so I would want to do it with him if there's a 2, but also kind of in the same vein of what's keeping me going with mapping. I also don't really like to do the same thing twice. That's why I very rarely put out sequels to maps. Because if I've done a concept, I don't usually like to do it again. If there has to be something like very different about it to make it like worthy of a sequel for me, like I would have to do something completely different on top of the concept of interlocking, and haven't really come up with anything that I've liked with that, like brainstorming in the past. So maybe in the future, but it hasn't really come to me. So big maybe .tm on that. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm not trying to make this all about me, but this is another follow-up from Linz. He's asking when next phobia map. That is real. Hydrophobia is real. There will be teaser for that when it's ready. The route is done. Scenery is in progress. And that will be out in the near future, hopefully. Are there any other... oh, yeah. Okay. No, I'm not going to keep answering these questions about me. Are there any other questions for anybody else, or Scarzor, or anybody else here?
Yeah, so when are we getting Boing 2?
Oh, God damn it. Same thing with interlocking. I like the idea of it, but I've tried it, different things with it, but if I'm going to do it again, I have to make it, worthy of a sequel, not just continuing the same thing. So when it happens, it'll happen.
See, you just combine the two. Yeah. Interlaken with Boing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Boing
God.
style.
That sounds like a circus freak act of a map.
Everywhere, plastic wall banks on ice.
Bumper-filled plastic ice map that doubles back on itself somehow. Oh,
yep.
God. Very map review friendly, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Yep.
We got any more questions? Any thoughts about CP spacing and placement? It's a really good question. I think it's going to change a little bit based on your map and what is specifically necessary, especially when it comes to cut proofing. There are going to be points where, depending on how you've set up the map design and scenery, you're going to want CPs placed in certain areas. That being said, there are some generally good rules to follow. I'd say the first of that being the density of your checkpoints. And this is a good way to kind of get around cut proofing as well, is if you have enough checkpoints, you have less of a chance of your map being cut. That's just at the end of the day. And also, that's not the only purpose of having a higher density of checkpoints. If you have a checkpoint every 4 to 7 seconds, I'd say is average. That means that you're not creating too little space in between checkpoints where it just feels like constant and there's not really areas to practice or make note of changes in between the checkpoints, but also not too long where they're just too spaced out, or if in a cup or a competitive style setting that the respawn from that checkpoint will be too long. So I'd say every 4 to 7 seconds is a good target to shoot for. And then other more general rules are not placing them usually mid-air, because if somebody gets the checkpoint mid-air and then they have a horrible landing, they respawn, there's nothing they can do about it. Similarly, right before or right after a jump, directly in front of or directly after a jump, staying away from that as well for the same reason. Just in terms of when you're having a flying respawn, you want the player to be able to make corrections as a result of that. Anybody else have any other general input about checkpoints?
Yeah. I guess something that I've noticed when mapping for myself is that try not to have checkpoints where you would usually. Okay, so in between checkpoints, you usually have like a section where it's like one on transition or like a jump or whatever, but like having the CPs so that you can set up for the next section of the map without like fully dying or like fully being stuck and need to restart the map again is a good way to start, I guess.
I agree.
Yeah, I guess more on the, because you mentioned with cuts. Just I guess a general tip that I've started doing for myself, and I think would be good for a lot of people. When you have two checkpoints, what you should do is draw a line between them and see what's going on there, because there have been I'd say a decent number of the cuts that have happened on maps this year. Sorry, I got to drag Intax for this one a little bit, but like the God Valley cut that got found afterwards was because you have a checkpoint, and then a section of track, and then another checkpoint. But if you draw a line between the two checkpoints, it was a lot shorter than this kind of like looping segment around, and that's kind of like a good way to identify, I guess, stress points.
Yep.
Like where cuts can occur is large segments of track that have basically, if it feels like, man, I really wish I could just go straight here, then that's the kind of things that you want to make sure, well, you shouldn't be able to.
Absolutely. That's a great point, and something that I and many people in this call or any people in the chat have probably at some point been able to benefit from, and just kind of taking out any sense of your own context, because you're biased as a mapper. When you start mapping, you just get in the headspace of this is how you drive it, and it's hard to think outside the box. So just taking from just a bird's eye view, look at the shortest path, because that's what players are going to do. They're going to find the path of least resistance. So if they can skip between checkpoints, they will find that. So keep an eye out for those. I think we're going a little over time here, so I think we'll do one more question. Sorry for questions we're not going to get to, or questions that have already been asked. We'll do one more question. We got a question here from Snowcastle. Any thoughts or advice on what makes a good risky finish? Any thoughts?
I think like for me, the most exciting risky finishes are the ones that are not speed checks but line checks. Not because I hate speed checks, but to me it's more exciting if you hit the line right and then can hit the risky finish. Doesn't have to be like extremely difficult, but there's something really satisfying to me about line checks and finishing in that way. So I think it's subjective. Everyone will have a different opinion about what makes a good risky finish, but I think line checks for me is what stand out. And I'm Ellipse. You will notice I'm a big hater of jumping over the borders.
Yeah.
I've seen that. I've seen that on every other map in map review. I'm kind of done with it. But yeah, line checks in general, it's kind of exciting to me because it challenges you to take the right lines, so you get rewarded for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think exactly what you said. I didn't really have to add more to that, but just rewarding skill as opposed to some sort of just big yeet over the side or just hoping you have enough speed or something, like where you're rewarding the skill of the player and giving them an opportunity to make up for lost time that they maybe would have lost. But yeah, I think also... Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that I definitely agree with the line checks thing. I think especially as well for, like, I think speed check endings have their place, but you should make them be as the result of like an interesting or good line. Like it shouldn't just be, say like you have to plant yourself in this Carlberg turn like perfect to get 2 speed above what you need to make this check, but more like changing the way that you take a line in order to be able to, you know, I guess it's like a level of fairness where you want the difficulty to not like suddenly spike in that, oh, getting the speed out of this turn is the only thing that really matters for finishing there. And then the other thing I think as well is that it depends on like the map style, because one of the maps that I'm working on right now, it's technically a little bit of a speed check and a bit of a line check, but really the main thing with it is just it looks cool. And I think that's something that's important to remember as well, is that sometimes if a thing looks cool and it feels cool, it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. At the end of the day, regardless of technical aspects of it or the placement or the context, it is the finish is the last impression of the route. You're playing through the route, you're kind of getting an impression of it as you go through, and if the finish is cool, you will have that walk away from that map experience, that first playthrough going, oh, that was cool, you know? Of course, that can change over time when you're grinding the map and you learn to hate a finish that you initially loved or whatnot.
Moon map.
I think it was really interesting that you made the point about like balance in terms of like how it matches with the rest of the map. I think that is a good overall point, because there's lots of debate about risky finishes, their purpose, their use, and we could sit here talking about it for an hour. Like we could have a whole conversation about that, I think. And lots of people have lots of different opinions. But I think one good rule of thumb kind of stems off what you were talking about, Agabu, which is having it feel like it belongs in that map. Regardless of if it's made for a professional competition or if it's made for Track of the Day. If you made a really flowy, beginner-friendly ocean grass map that ends in a super precise speed check, like through two pipes that are this close together, you know, it just doesn't feel like it belongs there in that sense, you know. But maybe that type of ending could feel like it falls into the skill set and into the vibe of, you know, a competitive tech map or something, you know. So it really just kind of making sure it feels like that style of ending belongs in the map, regardless of what the context is, what the purpose is. I think that's going to be important either way.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on risky finishes?
I think Aetherix raised a good point in chat.
What did Aetherix say? Sorry.
Basically that in general you can take the view, instead of thinking of the two finishes as like risky finish and safe finish, can kind of go more with like a normal finish and a backup finish.
Right.
And that most of the time, I guess actually this is really a good point as well. When you're making a risky finish, what you have to be thinking is 99% of people are going to use this finish every single time, and they're going to go for it every single time. And you know, you can't just plop something down that's hard and think it's a hard finish and therefore it's good, because you have to think about how people are going to play it. How likely is somebody going to be able to make this? How much faster or slower is it than the other finishes? So kind of like, instead of treating it as a risky finish that's just like a risk that you take, just make sure the finish, like, you know, plays well. And then if you need to make a backup finish for people that crash or something like that, deal with that then.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, bringing up the safe finish or the backup finish too, because a lot of decent risky finishes in concept can be ruined by just having an abysmal safe finish, by a safe finish that was clearly such an afterthought or was such a, oh, like I'm going to try to force this idea where you enter the risky in a different way, but it means that you have to drive slowly for an extra 10 seconds to get to it or something, you know, like those types of things are going to infuriate people. If I crashed right before the finish, give me my like extra second or something and let me finish. Don't take me on a long Mr. Bones wild ride to go find another finish somewhere, you know. I think that's always going to be a minus for people if a safe finish is just completely just an afterthought, you know. So but yeah, I think unless anybody has anything super pressing to talk about on that topic, I think we can wrap it up here. Yeah. All right. Well,
Yep.
thank you so much, everybody in the chat who joined us live on this very special third episode of the After Time podcast. Of course, thank you to Scarzor for joining us and taking time out of his busy schedule to give us some nuggets of his wisdom and just kind of tell us about what he's been doing and what's been going on. Of course, thanks to my co-hosts as well, Ellipse and Agraboo, for joining us as well. It's been great having you all here again. We're doing this every 2 weeks, every Sunday, evening or afternoon, depending on where you're at, 2 hours after Cup of the Day starts. If you aren't already, go ahead and follow us right here on Twitch if you're watching us live or not. TMA_GG. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can go ahead and subscribe right down there below to the TMA YouTube channel. And with that, thank you again, everybody else, for joining us. And we'll see you guys next time.